even though we do have private banking here in Cyprus, it works a bit more like in the public sector.
Mhm.
When you're talking with a bank, when you are dealing with a bank, it really feels that you're working with the public sector instead of a private banking institution. And this is what surprises a lot of the clients, I think, because it's a big difference when working with another, let's say, European bank compared to when you come to Cyprus.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Cyprus. I am Alexandros Tsangaridis,
I'm Kyriakos Charalambos.
and today we're talking about corporate banking and fintech with Akis Papakyriakou. Aki, welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. So, in this episode, brought to you by Domenica Group, as Alexander said, we're gonna go over some legal matters, but with a note on like mergers, acquisitions, and some, let's say, more trendy aspects. But before we go there, if you could please give us an intro on yourself, on your firm, and your experience so far in the market.
Yeah, so I am the managing partner of Papakyriakou LLC. We're based in Nicosia. We started the firm around 5 years ago, and we are predominantly working on corporate and finance and transactional work. I studied in the UK. I came back to Cyprus in 2016. Worked for a few years in one of the biggest law firms in Cyprus, and then I made the transition to starting my own law firm. Um, I, I would like to describe myself as a more fresh and innovative lawyer, not the traditional litigation lawyer. Um, Hence why I'm quite involved into the tech industry and fintech.
Nice. Alexander, do you want to start the interrogation?
Yes, of course, the interrogation. So we always write some questions. We don't always say those questions, but I'm gonna start with your academic and professional journey has been remarkable from Oxford to Cyprus. How has your education and training shaped your approach to legal practice today?
I can say basically that I'm to some extent an example that whatever you do at university can be transferred regardless of the path you follow. The reason I say this is that I passed the bar in the UK. I went to Oxford for a master's. So my whole path was planned to do litigation work and not to be in the corporate industry. But when I returned to Cyprus, I decided that litigation was not something that I wanted to do, mainly because of the situation in courts in Cyprus, especially back in 2016. And I felt that the corporate environment was something more suitable for me. And it was quite easy to transfer all the skills, the critical thinking, etc., that I developed throughout my studies into the corporate environment. And I can say to this day that's something that I definitely do not regret doing.
You you mentioned corporate, but based on what I know at least of your work, you were involved in a lot of mergers and acquisitions and a lot of very prominent deals, both in Cyprus and outside of
Mhm.
Cyprus. So, what I wanted to ask is basically this difference. So, um, how easy or difficult, or more easy and more difficult, was it to do some of these larger transactions here versus abroad? That's number one. And number two, if you notice any changes, meaning there are some things that can improve. Do you notice improvement in that field over the course of the last few years, or are things kind of stable in terms of the good and the bads?
Okay. So the difference between the transactions, let's say both abroad and in Cyprus, I think it just has to do with the scale. So our work, let's say in Cyprus, also the professional environment, etc., has nothing um, missing, let's say, compared to what is going on in the UK, etc. But the transactions taking place in Cyprus is obviously of a smaller scale. Um, but we still have that professionalism, etc. So I'm quite happy to work in this side of matters in Cyprus as well. Now, as to how things are and if things are improving or not, um, to some extent, yes, and to some other extent, no. When you're involved into transactional work and mergers and acquisitions, etc., especially also in the banking industry, a lot of the work depends on the regulators and the regulatory regimes, which, to be honest, to some extent, we are adapting to the European frameworks, but we're doing it a bit slowly. Um, that's the main issue, I believe, with Cyprus is that it's a bit slow in adapting, and this is one of the issues with our regulators um, as well.
It's interesting because in with on these conversations we basically ask, I would say, kind of similar topics, but from people that see a transaction or a deal from different angles, right? So most of them claim that the private sector in Cyprus is actually very good at deal making, agile, flexible, etc., while the public sector kind of is what you're saying, like the regulators, even the banking system, which is, in my humble opinion, a bit weird to some people because um, in general, people from abroad are considering banks to be to work as private corporations, which is the case here as well. But we see here maybe because there are less banks and maybe because they are more regulated, them being a bit slower to adapt. Although there are steps taken, but basically what I wanted to say is, do you feel that they are taking steps, both the financial institutions, the Central Bank of Cyprus, and the regulators, to basically bridge this gap? So you have a client from abroad trying to make a transaction here. You come to Domenica Group to buy a property, and you are used to certain things that don't apply here. Do you see an attempt from them to understand the feedback and improve in order to make future transactions easier?
Yeah, so I believe that they're trying. What you said is that even though we do have private banking here in Cyprus, it works a bit more like in the public sector.
Mhm.
I, when you're talking with a bank, when you're dealing with a bank, it really feels that you're working with the public sector instead of a private banking institution. And this is what surprises a lot of the clients, I think, because it's a big difference when working with another, let's say, European bank compared to when you come to Cyprus. I think that the main reason for this is that the scrutiny after the issues we had in the past has probably affected banks to a great extent and made them very cautious. So now that their compliance departments, etc., are always very reluctant with any new deals, any foreign clients, etc. So they need to take their time.
Mhm.
It doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong, but I believe that if we want to be considered a business hub, if we want to bring more investors in Cyprus, we should find some middle ground and at the least follow the procedures, but expedite them to some extent.
Mhm. What we were discussing earlier is that because of these issues, we saw a rise in EMIs or other like payment solution providers active in Cyprus, but also opening up shops in Cyprus and being active all over the world. Could you tell us, first of all, if you think that that makes sense? I'm talking about them choosing Cyprus over other jurisdictions to open up shop. And two, if you believe that that's a trend that will continue and they will keep coming here, or if maybe Cyprus and the central bank is slowly trying to push them away? What's the current status?
So the first thing, yeah, we do have a lot of EMIs and PSPs coming to Cyprus, both setting up branches and setting up their headquarters, etc., here in Cyprus, which I think it's a really good thing because it's something we need, competition to the traditional banks. And the only difficulty at this stage is to actually convince clients, especially Cypriot clients, that EMIs are a safe option, right, and they could work with them as well. And I believe that we're getting there. And I believe that this trend is going to increase. There is a lot of requests for new EMIs setting up headquarters in Cyprus, coming to Cyprus. There's a lot of interest. And the only concern, let's say, again, we have to do with Central Bank of Cyprus, with the regulator. And essentially, it's a matter of them trying to become a bit more open, faster, in order to be able to accommodate these requests. Because we have, for example, a request from clients. Always one of the most important things they ask is, okay, I'm going to apply within the next month for the license. When am I going to be able to operate? When will I get my license? It's gonna be probably the answer is probably gonna be more than a year until the license is issued. And so the question is, okay, I want to come to Cyprus. The whole regime is very attractive, etc. But other jurisdictions can get my license in half that time. I think this is one of the main problems that we have. It's the timing, but also the certainty that is missing because of this.
You feel that the rules of the game are changing, let's say, in terms of the licensing process?
Yeah, because
Okay.
if you have your competitive countries within the European Union, if they can offer the same thing that you offer, but in half the time or a quarter of the time, then you have two options. You either need to adapt and do the same, or you need to be able to offer something even more attractive.
And the attractiveness that you mentioned, the regime that you mentioned that people are looking when they come here, what are like the key? Um,
So it's first of all, it's the tax incentives and the whole tax system here in Cyprus. There are a lot of incentives for high-tech companies to set up their business in Cyprus, bring their employees here. They have deductions in income tax, etc. A lot of these high-tech companies, the EMIs, but generally tech companies, can take advantage potentially of the IP box regime as well.
could you please explain what that is?
Okay, so the IP box regime is an incentive that was introduced a few years ago and has been developing ever since, which essentially allows for a good percentage of your expenses to be deducted from taxes relating to the development and licensing of certain qualified IP assets. And essentially, what this means is that if you're getting qualified income for a qualified asset, this qualified asset could be, for example, a software. This software could be a game, so we could be talking about a gaming company, but it could also be um, a KYC related software that is being licensed from an EMI, for example, that they developed it and they licensed outside. And okay, so from this license, you're receiving royalties. Um, these royalties could potentially be taxed at an income at a tax rate as low as 2.65% instead of 12.5%.
Sorry, I've taken too much of your interrogation time, but
No, no, no,
it's
no.
something
It's
that
very
is
interesting.
it's
It's very
interesting to me
interesting.
because the most like bizarre thing is that some of these offerings that Cyprus has, I hear it from people that I know in the industry that are not living here. And sometimes we don't know about these. Okay, you could say that it's because tax system with defense tax and everything for us is slightly different, but even non-domiciled Cypriots living here don't necessarily know all of these.
Yeah. And you know the problem. I'm leaving a bit off topic. I had several meetings when I travel abroad, etc., with both organizations and entrepreneurs, other lawyers, etc. And what surprises me is that even though most of these have heard of Cyprus, they know, okay, Cyprus has an attractive tax regime, etc. None of them actually knows the details. None of them actually knows what the IP box regime is. Uh, they don't know about the non-dom regime. So it's something that I believe that it's probably missing. I don't know if we're doing something wrong. Um, I had a meeting with an investor in the UK. They told me that they went to an event that was supposed to promote Cyprus, etc., etc. And when I was talking to them about the non-dom and the IP box, etc., they told me, okay, why didn't anyone mention this to us?
Yeah, I think sometimes it feels that instead of having like a long-term strategy and basically going on it at different angles and saying we are offering these benefits, how we're gonna maximize the impact, we kind of rely on word of mouth, which is a bit bizarre because okay, you kind of say, why do you care, meaning as a developer. So for me, and it's something that I have mentioned many times, as Domenica Group, these people are coming here, right? Of course, they contribute to culturally, they contribute in terms of like the society, they offer different point of view. But at the end of the day, in my humble opinion, the reason that the government is trying to approach all these companies and convince them to come is exactly because maybe you're not going to be getting money from the tax directly, but indirectly they need to stay somewhere, they need to spend money on restaurants, spend money on going out, renting, buying a property, and that kind of contributes indirectly to the economy. And that's one of the reasons why I think that it's important to kind of form a strategy and actually promote Cyprus the right way. And Invest Cyprus is trying to do stuff.
These are services that we should be
Yeah,
promoting.
yeah. Because we have an attractive tax regime. Okay, we have the 12.5% corporate tax, but that by itself does not actually bring business to Cyprus. It used to work in the past because we had all those shell companies that they were setting up in Cyprus. The UBOs had never been to Cyprus. They had their nominee directors, etc., and they were paying the 12.5. This doesn't really work anymore. So we need to change the narrative. We need to try and bring the businesses to Cyprus. But in order to do that, we need to tell them why they should come to Cyprus and what they're going to gain by coming to Cyprus. Because someone's going to ask, okay, why should I come to Cyprus and not go to Malta or Dubai or wherever? And yeah, or I have a lot of clients that they are relocating to Portugal under the NHR regime. And a lot of them don't know that our non-dom is quite similar and not probably even more attractive and easier to get if you actually relocate to Cyprus.
Well, some of these things are certainly new, even to me, that I'm theoretically closer to these requirements. But yeah, Alex.
For a closing remark, what advice would you give to companies considering major transactions in Cyprus,
Um,
based on what you already said?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to, especially if we're talking about foreign companies coming to Cyprus to invest or for a transaction, etc. It's of essence to always do your research, speak to the right professionals, and try to be as well informed as possible in order to be able to get into a transaction and know exactly what you're getting into, and also an advice a bit to the professionals is that we should always be completely transparent to the clients and to the companies that are coming, so that they know exactly what to wait in terms of their cost, the time frames, and what they will be getting from Cyprus.
And when? Very nice.
Thank you very much, Aki. Thank you for making the time. Thank you for
Thank you for having me.
for sharing knowledge. I certainly, as I said, learned a lot, and it's interesting
Same
how
here.
you start a conversation and then it's what Alexandra said. We typically prepare stuff,
By the
which
name
we
it
never,
was scheduled, yes.
Yeah.
which is good because you want a professional of the field to really tell you the things that they believe that are important, not what we think might be important.
And things that we didn't know that we didn't know.
Exactly. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you for
guys.
coming,
Thank you
and
both.
thank you everyone for watching. See you on the next episode. Bye.